my advice for leaders is, hey, you have to be constantly sharpening the saw, trying to improving your both business acumen and your people-centric leadership.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen Case Study Series. On today's episode, we have Tim Pratte, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Selerix, a leading provider of benefits administration software solutions. With a rich background in sales, marketing, and leadership, Tim has been instrumental in driving innovation and growth at Selerix, particularly through the integration of AI technologies to enhance customer acquisition and streamline sales systems, which is why we're excited to have him on the show. Tim, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So to get things started here, Tim, I'd love to kind of get a quick little background, maybe a couple of minutes on, who you are, where you came from, and how you landed as the CEO of Selerix.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to do it. So, I spent most of my career in the HR services space, more specifically professional employer organizations for nearly 25 years before getting to Prism HR, who's a leader in the HCM technology space today. We grew the revenue there by about 4x during my tenure. And I've been well aware of Selerix for some time. And the original founder of Selerix, Lyle Griffin, who is a visionary in the space, started the business 22 years ago. And 3 years ago, he sold to a private equity firm. Next Phase Capital is our principal financial sponsor. And Lyle decided to retire. And Next Phase and the management team here at Selerix are looking for another CEO, a growth-oriented person that can come in and elevate the company to the next level and drive bigger market share and great customer experience overall. So with my experience at Prism, I was a good fit. I started a little bit over 90 days ago. So I'm just getting into the role now, and we're making a lot of adjustments and improving the pace here to make sure that we can meet the market demand that's out there for systems like ours.
Okay, that's exciting. So this is kind of a newer position then for you, being
Yes.
just 90 days into her. So far, what have you? What's your approach here? What's the angle? What are you noticing? What are you looking to tackle in terms of streamlining things?
Yeah, so really, really interesting question. So we have a point solution today that is great for mid-market employers. When I say mid-market, we consider that to be between 1,000 and 10,000 employees. We have some tools built around it. We have Engage, which is an employee engagement benefit communication tool. We also have Affordable Care Act, an Affordable Care Act module that helps keep employers in compliance with the ACA. And now we're trying to build out our AI strategy, for one, to ensure that our product can do a whole host of things to support employees. And secondly, build around our product with additional add-on modules that are adjacent to Ben Admin. So as an example, we have a partner with a third-party administrator to offer COBRA administration and FSA and HSA administration. We're starting to build out our partnerships program so that it becomes really adjacent to complement our core Ben Admin platform.
Okay, so then in terms of the first thing that I heard you mention was mid-market being 1,000 to 10,000 employees. There
Yes.
can't be a lot of those out there, so I imagine it's a pretty competitive space. What are you doing to kind of differentiate yourself in terms of your approach?
I think about our competitors. I don't try to build to our competitors. We have 3 or 4 major competitors out there, and in the market research, we all do a great job for employers. We're all ranked very highly by employers. We all have very high NPS scores. So I don't think about it as taking business away from, let's say, one of our competitors as PlanSource. I don't think about it that way. The way I think about it is, as customers, as businesses are growing and maturing in their life cycle, many of them have signed up with a full suite solution, like let's say ADP, who's handling benefits, payroll, performance evaluations, applicant tracking. And all those tools are perfectly fine up until you hit a certain threshold. And then all of a sudden you start to think, gosh, for my industry, for the size employer that I am, I need to go to a bigger, better point solution that is going to be really configurable and customizable to the type of industry or the needs that I have as a growing business. So that's why the marketplaces at ADP have been wildly successful because people may not want to use ADP for everything. So they leave it a little bit open ended, and you can partner with one of the, as a business owner, you can partner with one of the ADP partners to get a solution such as ours. So we're getting ready to launch in the ADP marketplace now as an example. And those employers that are kind of outgrowing the benefits administration side of ADP, we're there and we can handle that business more effectively. So again, I don't think about it as competing with my competitors necessarily so much as trying to do the right thing for our customers and bringing a world-class product to those growing businesses. And if we're doing that well, then I won't have to think about our competitors for a long time.
Yeah, good point. I like the frame rather than being competitive, you're being collaborative and looking for what is the most viable solution for the, existing
Yes.
partners or players that are involved. So how did some of your early experiences in some of your earlier roles kind of shape your approach to the way that you're kind of navigating this new space?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time in the operations space early in my career in human resources and payroll operations. That gave me a real lens into how operations needs to work, how capacity planning needs to work in order to be sufficient and really, really good on the services side of the business. A little bit later in my career, I started getting into business development and realized how much I really enjoyed the business development side. But one of the areas that I really tried to hone in on was in partnerships. And I never wanted to do a partnership where someone walked away feeling like they got the short end of the stick. We should sign a contract, and everyone should feel good about what they got. So we should feel good about the value we get. If the partnership was with you, Devin, then you should feel great about that as well. We all walk away and we drive some business together. And I never liked the feeling of win-loss. So we tried to create a lot of win-win, and sometimes that is to our economic detriment, but in the short run, but in the long run, it pays off to have great partners that feel like they're getting great value from your platform. So that shaped, coming into this role, how we can continue to drive business together and do so in a very collaborative way with both our customers and with future marketplace partners that we're bringing in to run adjacent to complement our platform.
So in terms of some of the milestones that you're setting out in terms of, what you're aiming at, where are you starting from and what are some of the bigger goals that you're aiming at in terms of maybe revenue or company size or what other metrics maybe that are more important?
Yeah, so revenue is always important, but more importantly, is doing so profitably and doing so with intentionality.
Mm.
So we're going to be very intentional about how we grow the company. So we have a desire. We're at about 120 or so employees today, where we're doing revenue mid 20 millions. We want to in the short term, and when I say short term, the next 2 to 3 years, double the revenue and double the number of employees that we have, and double the number of employers that we're working with over a fairly short period of time. We're going to do that in a couple different ways. Again, driving a great experience is one way, and we already do that and get a number of referrals from our existing customers. Number two is continuing to work with our resellers and channel partners all the way around to help them drive net new business. And number three is just new organic sales, going out and finding those new employers in a whole host of different ways by ramping up marketing and content and thought leadership in this space. And fourth, through some bolt-on acquisitions. So bolt-on acquisitions have not been part of Celerix's historic DNA, but they will be part of our future DNA. I've talked a lot about that with employees, and that's going to help bring more capabilities to the company and serve a wider audience. So we're pretty excited about what the future holds, both in the short term and the long term.
You know, one of the things that I've kind of noticed becoming a bit of a trend in this kind of top tier, like you said, mid-market businesses is that addition of other departments. Like for example, if you and I'm being really basic here just for the sake of the illustration, but let's say you're you're coming up, you've been doing some marketing activities, and it's becoming a little bit cumbersome to your existing internal team. And so we just go buy a marketing agency and then plug that into the company and let it run. So I'm noticing a lot of that taking place in terms of growing businesses, business acquisition, and that sort of thing. What sorts of challenges and bottlenecks do you think you'll be encountering as that goes through? What are you be preparing yourself for in terms of keeping track of that and measuring your success?
Yeah, it's a really good question. In every capability that we want to add, there's a build, buyer, partner decision to be made. As an example, I think let's take AI strategy as an example. It would take us a long time to develop a set of AI tools from scratch. So right now we're in the mode of partnering with companies that we can surface those tools within our product where it might make some sense. So we're in conversation right now with a number of companies to be able to use their tools to provide a better overall experience. But in the long run, we may be in a position to either buy one of those companies, or we may be in a position to build something of our own. And some combination of build, buy, and partner is always going to make sense. But in the short term, partnership, seems to almost always make the most sense when you can draft agreements where the economics are split reasonably. That can make the sense in the short term while you figure out that long-term strategy.
Right. And as you add more people to the team, I guess it would create a little bit of friction in terms of managing that and keeping a finger on the pulse of all of the people. Because that's one thing too that the management or kind of top level control of the company versus the people boots on the ground that are on the front lines doing the work. Sometimes when you grow too fast or you don't grow intentionally, there's a bit of a disconnect in the communication channels there. How are you navigating that in terms of the way that you guys are building the business?
Yeah, you're hitting on a great point, and it's a point really about culture and how you drive a communicative culture. And I think it's incumbent on me as the CEO at Celerix to also be the chief communications officer and to be constantly educating people around our vision and mission and how we want to simplify benefits through the use of technology and everything that we want to do. We have to, it's not just good enough to do that though. We also have to be a great employer and a great place to work.
Mhm.
And when you have great leaders, as we do here at Celerix, we put some structure in place to have a natural waterfall of communications. But I held a roundtable here in our corporate office in McKinney, Texas last week. And communication was a point that came up, quite frankly, in that roundtable. It was great to even hold a roundtable. It was an ad hoc session. I sent out an invite the day before and said, hey, anyone that's in the office and wants to meet. And I had probably close to 30 people show up. And one of the common themes there was communication. What tools can we use and how do we communicate a little bit better? Like one of the, not to give you too far a peek behind how the sausage is made, but one of the questions was, hey, could our release notes go out to the rest of the organization a little bit more in advance of us communicating those to our customers so we can have an appropriate training session with all employees on new features and functionality coming out? And it's like, well, oh my gosh, how did we not realize that this was an issue before? So communication is going to be a constant, but when you have a great culture and people are willing to surface those issues, you can hit them pretty head on pretty quickly. So Celerix before I got here already had a great culture with values that aligned with mine personally. So there's nothing to really change or fix there, but continue to double down on all the good things that are going on and to ensure that we're driving a collective communication among all the employees.
One of the things that Simon Sinek talks about is cultivating a culture where it's okay to come to the leadership with problems and that it's a team effort on both fronts, management and the team member, to approach that from the perspective of we are on the same team looking at the problem as its own separate thing rather than the person bringing the problem is the problem, which is kind of how it's been interpreted in some of the older, kind of more traditional management styles. So when it comes to cultivating that and empowering your team and creating this balance now between the tools and the technologies. What sorts of things are you kind of looking for to bring into that culture to help you kind of cultivate that open channel of communication?
Well, I think the open communication starts, and I love the Simon Sinek reference, and I agree. It's has to be us against the problem, not person against person when an issue is raised. Um, but it starts with having a level of humility. Ryan Holiday wrote a book called "Ego is the Enemy," and he wrote an
Love it.
entire book how the only thing really standing in anyone's way is their own ego. And I find that happens a lot in business where people can't get past a particular issue because their ego is standing between them and the solution to the problem. So it starts with us having that level of openness and being able to take that ego and set it aside and realize that we're here to be good shepherds of financial resources and to make good decisions. And one of the best ways to make those decisions is by listening to everyone around you and not thinking you always have the answer. Now you have to start to layer into that culture the tools that are necessary to do that. So we have digital suggestion boxes. We're using Teams more and more frequently to set up channels to be able to communicate within the organization. We have regular leadership meetings on a weekly basis. That there's certain structural pieces like leadership meetings and one-on-ones with employees that have to remain in place to keep that open door communication. And people can't feel like they got reprimanded for bringing an idea or bringing a problem to the table. And it drives me nuts when someone does feel like that, because then they never bring something to the forefront again. And now that opportunity for future improvement might be lost. So it's really important to me that we have a culture of openness and transparency in things that we're doing to the degree that we can. Of course, we may make acquisitions or do things that have to be done behind closed doors, talking about company financials and other elements. But to the degree that it improves the business, we have to have that openness to our employees to be able to bring those things forward. And then to your point, we have to collaborate with that employee against the problem, not against each other. That old phrase of shoot the messenger, don't shoot the messenger. That's not necessarily a messenger. They're just they're raising the issue that we then have to tackle. And it's important that we tackle those issues, quickly with a level of intentional urgency too.
Yeah, because if that person feels like when they bring a problem to you that their job is, or their position or their livelihood is in jeopardy, then it makes it very easy for them to just, you know what, this isn't my problem, not my monkey, not my circus, and now you have a business that essentially is no longer functional and will, I guess, slowly erode over time. And this, on the other side of it too, the same exists for the channels of communication with your like clients, the people that you're serving, because they may come to you with problems, and if you don't have a good enough channel of communication there, then they're going to just find somebody who's better at that, and take away the opportunity from you and give it to somebody else. So when it comes to that whole kind of, always fascinated about the kind of customer journey, right? How they find you, how they engage with you, how you keep them engaged or keep them sticky, creating feedback loops and things like that. So Tim, could you kind of give us a lay of the land, maybe 30,000 foot view of like what your customer experience map looks like?
Yeah, so the customer journey map is constantly improving, and to give this a bit of context, we've changed our model a little bit. Even since I joined, we were very reliant on insurance brokers for referrals, and now we're starting to go. We have a multi-channel strategy. One is to go find some direct business, and two is to ensure that the resellers of our product have everything that they need and no roadblocks in order to write more business using our technology. But let's stick with the direct path because that's where the customer experience really matters. So we've ramped up the marketing. We've ramped up, the thought leadership. We're starting to see more incoming quality leads. We're starting to see higher quality leads come in. And it all starts with, who are you on the front end and what do you represent? And I think that, companies want to do business with other companies that have a high ethical bar and good communication and strong leadership. And we've put those building blocks in place. Then when that customer comes on and they've decided that we've met their minimum criteria, to be able to accomplish what they need, they come on. That's when the real journey starts from an implementation perspective, all the way through to handling the Affordable Care Act compliance and maybe even employee communications and benefit communications. All of those things work pretty well. We've not had a bad experience here at Selerix. Our services team is top notch. We are trying now to figure out how do we hone those teams to give an even better experience. So one of the elements that we're playing with is a verticalization as an example of our sales and marketing to operations teams, so that in a particular vertical where we're really strong, let's say trucking or K through 12 school systems, you have sales folks that are working that particular vertical, all the way down to the services teams that are really focused on that vertical. So conceptually, we're playing with this now because we think it could be a more customer intimate experience. And I expect we'll start to implement elements of that here as we get into early 2025. So we have to constantly be vigilant about looking at that customer experience and making improvements. And one thing that I've challenged all of our leaders with is, people think about yourself as a consumer. It really resonates with you when you have a great experience or you have a terrible experience. The middle of the road doesn't really resonate. But when you have a great experience or a bad experience, it's because there were moments in those transactions that surprised you in some way. So how do we introduce the element of surprise to the upside so that when someone is interacting with us, they have a particular issue? No one ever calls in and says, hey, you're doing a great job. They call in because they have a problem. They need help with the software. They need help with a whole variety of things. But how do we create moments that surprise them in a positive fashion? And we're starting to map that out and figure out where are the points that we can do that and drive our customer success even higher.
Yeah, it's really cool. You're reminding me of an experience I had when I was a little bit younger. I took my son to Disney World, and Disney has this thing they call magic moments. And so we were trying to buy some ice cream or something like that, and I had run out of money. We kind of exhausted the end of it, and the guy that was behind the counter could kind of see that my son really wanted this thing, and we just couldn't make it happen. And he came out from behind there and brought my son an ice cream cone and said, "Hey, listen, it's on the house. I just wanted to make sure that you guys had a magical time here." And then off he went into the crowd, and it was just it was like a very jarring experience because it's not one that you expect to happen, but also at the same time, it's one still to this day, however many years, this must be 5 years ago that it happened, I still talk about it very fondly because of how memorable or remarkable that experience was. So when you look forward at some of the work that you're doing, what are some of the big goals that you're aiming at that help kind of create these opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, aside from the, setting the financial goals aside, I think that we want to be a leader in the overall employee experience, and having a good benefit enrollment experience is key to that. It feels like it takes a PhD in mathematics to figure out, your copay and deductibles and comparing plans. And we need to continue to build our platform to simplify those things, to educate employees on, what they should enroll in. And that means layering in AI to that. And some of the conversations we're having around AI and big data is, okay, how can we surface bits of data that nudge the employee to make better decisions? I think not every person in the country, but the vast majority of Americans are dealing with high inflation. They're dealing with rising costs all over the place. And people are paying more and more for benefits, and it's important that they're getting the value out of those benefits and they understand what they're signing up for. So one of my big goals is for employees to have a great experience. The second big goal is to ensure that none of our customers ever achieve an ACA fine. We're seeing more and more employers that are being fined by the IRS, and they're having to pay penalties. And we had one last week, prospect that came up. They got a letter saying that they owed $2 million in penalties. And that should never happen. That's a solvable problem with little cost to a business to keep them in compliance. So both of those things are important to drive great experiences with both. If we drive great experiences, we'll continue to write net new business. We'll continue to grow our business over the next couple of years, and we'll continue to hit our revenue goals and drive a great culture. And the real important element there is doing so with intentionality, having a list of key initiatives, making sure employees have work-life balance and making sure that they're working on things that are meaningful to the business and that they can connect what they're doing back to the mission and vision of the business.
Yeah, those are all really great goals, especially just how human focused they are. Um, Tim, this has been very insightful. You've been very generous with your time and your wisdom here, and I'm very grateful for what you've shared so far. As we kind of wrap things up, I wonder if you can maybe look forward at some of the upcoming trends or maybe some big goals that you guys are aiming at, and explore that a little bit. What are you excited about this kind of on the horizon for Celerix?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One are all the different companies that we can partner with. There are so many different companies out there, and it starts with payroll integrations. And one of the things that we're really excited about is the way data flows. And there, in the HR tech space, there are not set standards for how data is flowing other than working with each other's APIs. And LIMRA, who largely is an organization, not for profit, that helps set some standards in the voluntary benefit space, has tackled this with LDEC standards. And all of us are trying to figure out how do we get on those LDEC standards to make data flow freely between us as organizations. And that, I think, excuse me, will have a major impact on what the future looks like from a data flow perspective. And for us, outside of that, we want to be payroll agnostic with any of the payroll providers out there so that no matter who you're with, you can obviously work with us in any light. Then beyond that, partnerships with a whole host of companies that could, again, be meaningful to our platform, that could complement exactly what our platform does.
Yeah, those are all very exciting prospects. Just looking at what the opportunities are out there, it's exciting to see that the growth is kind of there's momentum in the direction that you guys are headed in, and growth is inevitable from that. So, Tim, as we kind of close the show out here, I wonder if you could maybe leave some parting words in terms of advice for others who are kind of out there up to it, trying to build big things. And it seems that you kind of have a grasp on what works and what isn't working. So, what would you share with somebody who's kind of out there working on something big?
I take a pretty employee-centric approach to things. I think it has to start, as an employer, you have to be in it for your employees first, you know. Excuse me. I think employers, whenever an employer says, "Oh, our employees are our greatest asset," is really missing the point of it, because they're not assets, they're people at the end of the day. And people want to be connected to other people. So people stay at companies not because of the wages, not because of the benefits, but because they work for really good leaders. And I say it a lot, both in my personal life when I'm talking to other entrepreneurs, and in my work life when I'm talking to our leaders. Life is too short to work for a crappy leader. So you want leaders that are going to empower their employees, listen to them, and try to do the right thing by the business and have a high ethical bar. And if you're working with someone today that isn't holding up their end of the bargain as an employer, then it's not too late. You can always find something else to do. My advice for leaders is, hey, you have to be constantly sharpening the saw, trying to improving your both business acumen and your people-centric leadership. And that's going to flow through to all different aspects of your life. So you have to do both. And the great leaders manage to do both of those things. And that's worked out well for so many successful businesses.
Tim, I wouldn't be surprised if after this interview airs, you have 100 new resumes in your inbox from people who want to join the team, because it seems like you have a really solid grasp on the human element of running a business. And so I think there's much to be learned from that. If somebody wanted to reach out to you to perhaps pick your brain further or work with you, what's the best way for somebody to do that?
Yeah, would love to. Always open to the collaboration. Best way to get a hold of me is looking me up on LinkedIn, Tim Pratt. I think there's only one of me. And through my email, tim.pratt, that's Pratte at Selerix, that's Selerix.com.
Wonderful. We'll make sure to link to your LinkedIn there in the show notes for anybody who's looking to connect with you. They can do so easily there. And on that note, if you wanted to reach out to me and my team for any of your marketing needs, you can visit nextgengrowth.com. Otherwise, that's it for this episode. Thanks for joining us for this conversation, and I will see you in the next.